I see you.
Back in the studio with my buddy Martino, real estate professional,
Yes.
but also a professional of many other things. Martino, thanks for coming in.
Dude, Jay, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So I remember when I first met you, it was virtually through the Harvest networking community, and you were on a train wearing headphones almost as big as these to drown out the sound, but you were locked in. It was like a 7 a.m. Zoom, as we always get on there, 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And you're on the train and you're hustling and bustling, and you probably, have already been up for a couple hours and you're heading into the city. And I knew as soon as I saw your screen, I was like, that guy's a hustler. Like, that guy's moving and shaking.
Yeah,
So
that's funny you say that. Hustler's been a word that's been used a lot when describing me. I'm trying to, I take it as an utmost confidence, especially coming from you, Jay. I really appreciate it. Really looking like this is my 4th full year of real estate. Now trying to get out of the hustler mindset and, more of like the, business owner, use leverage instead of me running around and implement systems and SOPs, as you know. And it's transitioning from hustler to, I guess, business owner this year, full time, which has been fun. But I do remember those early days on the Harvest, just doing whatever it took to be there for that 7 a.m. man. Even if I was commuting, I'd try to tap in.
Right. And shout out to anyone listening who's just getting started, right? Don't knock on some of the things that get you to where you're at, right? If it wasn't for getting up early and seeing you on that Zoom and then us chatting at some networking events and getting to know each other in person, we wouldn't be here today. So get in the room, show up, get involved in whatever you think can kind of set the stage for what's next. So you're saying that, at this point, are you saying, I brought this up in another podcast, when you kind of get out of that hustler mentality and you get be a little bit more selective, do you find yourself saying no more?
Absolutely. It's a tough thing for me to do too, Jay. I don't know if do you have the same problem?
It's tough.
Yeah, right. Like, especially as someone like I identify as like, a very outgoing person. So I always want to say yes to everything. But as you get into like business, it's like when you say yes to everything, you're saying no to a lot of things too, which is just as crucial. So I think this year there's a word for no. Definitely trying to be more conscious.
I like that. A word for no. Yeah. Holidays are around. We're approaching the holiday season, max stress time, because I've spoke to a lot of other entrepreneurs or business owners, just guys or girls operating at a high level. And the holidays puts a lot of added stress because then you have expectations with the family and the friends and people that you don't see a lot.
Yeah.
But I have to mention that if you want to have, a very successful work-life balance, you only have those opportunities with some of those family members every so often. So especially around the holidays, anyone who's listening, please take the extra time to have the phone call with mom, have the dinner, make the trip if you can. I mean, you've traveled, I've seen that, and I give you credit for that. Yeah. As a young gentleman who's getting involved, I mean, you've definitely embraced that balance, and I can tell. Because there's so many individuals that I run into on a daily basis who you can tell that they're like horse in blinders, extremely successful in their businesses, but there's something missing there. So
yeah, it's to your point, man. I always say, you can get the big house, right, and work your ass off getting it, but who are you going to fill it with?
Yeah, good point.
So take care of your people along the way.
So it's a big piece. What was your life? And we'll talk about the houses. We'll talk about what you're getting into. But what was your life before real estate? 4 years in real estate, mostly residential, with an emphasis now focusing on more on the commercial, which we'll get into. But what was life before real estate for Martino?
Life before real estate.
We'll do the PG version.
Yeah, PG. PG. Life before college. I mean, just to give a little background, I was born in the city, raised in the city, and at the age of 5, my parents took us over to Jersey for the education. They didn't want to pay for a prep school, so they were like, let's pay the high taxes. Yeah. It's never really, you're not going to win either way. You're either going to get hit with prep school fees or taxes, and we chose the taxes. Came back to the city when I was 15, and when I came back to the city, I was, just for context here, I was playing hockey up to that point my entire life. So, 5 years in the city and then 10 years back in Jersey. We practiced at the Flyers training center, which was sweet. I'm a huge Flyers fan. I'd go watch them practice. I was very fortunate to pick some of the pros' brains being in that rink, and it made me want to become a professional hockey player, as you could probably guess.
Okay.
So that was the vision. That was the mission probably until I was 20, I'd say 20. So so my entire life came back to the city. So point being is my parents came back to the city when I was 15, but I didn't. I actually moved up to Connecticut, told them that I wanted to pursue prep school hockey. So I went up there, played, lived away from home. It was amazing. Was fortunate to actually finish out my high school career here in the city at Roman Catholic. Shout out Roman Catholic and all the boys there.
I know a few. I knew the strength and conditioning coach there.
Who was it?
Joe, Big Joe. He was a physical therapist. Actually, I think he's
Okay.
a doctor of physical therapy. He has Pride Fit Training, which
Okay.
is in the city. It's one of his shops.
That sounds super familiar. Where is that? In Center City area?
It's his facility. It's in Fishtown.
Okay. Yeah, that's where our office is.
Yeah, I know him as Joe. He's a DPD. He trains. But he is Roman's strength and performance conditioning coach. I mean, he's doing a really good job. They keep winning all these championships and such.
I was gonna say, he must be doing a hell of a job because
Yeah.
we have some of the best athletes, I think, in the city. And
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's biased being there.
No,
but
I think they're incredible. Hey, I mean,
Yeah.
Roman Catholic basketball has whooped everyone's butt.
everybody's butt.
Yeah.
When I went there, it was back to back, and I was like, "Is it always like this? Is this always this like
Yeah.
fun?" And it was, and yeah, super lucky to go there and finish up in the city. So being away from the city kind of my whole life, I was always like very close by and intrigued by it. It was always like my parents both owned businesses. My father owned a pizza shop, still owns it to this day, 38 years.
Hell yeah.
Dropped out of high school, the whole thing. And my mom actually at the time owned a cafe on South Street, which is a really popular street in, downtown area as you get into Center City. And like I said, they're both moving over there and I kind of left. So when I came back when I was 18, I was really embraced by the city. All my friends in South Philly and a lot of people that I just kind of met through school even, were just like, yeah, come here. And every time I'd go out and see something, I'd be like, this is amazing. This is amazing. So I fell in love with the city. When I finally kind of sank my teeth into it, came home, and I was like, what can I do that would really match up with my skill set? I was in real estate construction. I was in real estate leasing in college. So I was just very familiar with the business. My father owned real estate. My uncle owned real estate. All my family owned real estate. And I was like, we're doing pretty well for ourselves. Let me try to get into this and set my family up like they set me up. I was able to play a very great sport in ice hockey, travel and see a lot of great things. To your point earlier, I have that habit built in me. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for real estate because it provides such stability and passive income.
It does. So
I just immediately jumped into it. I said, I want to do construction. No one was hiring. I want to do leasing. No one was hiring. So I was like, you know what? Let me try the sales thing. And it worked out. It really did. And I was really blessed to meet the right mentors at the time who showed me the way. Shout out Nick Gigante, shout out Jim Roach. And
all right.
The rest is kind of history. Now I'm in that resi commercial kind of field like you were talking about.
Yeah, and we're going to explore that later in the show. But I will tell you, real estate, I say the financial industry as a whole, whether it's insurance, real estate, title, it really attracts all sorts of walks of life, right? And going back, I knew you were a hockey guy when we were at the networking event, and you said something was a Butte. Oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I didn't realize Brandon, Brandon as well was one of your buddies who's a big hockey guy. So I think sports in general, just taking it all the way back, sports in general builds a lot of, muscle memory, a lot of like determination, a lot of, I guess, persistence and consistency. But that translates into business. So
I was going to say just a lot of good habits. Like if you play in sports, you're just going to learn these good habits. Not if you just play it, but if you really embrace it and try to, become the best of what you do in anything. I think, it's such a good habit.
So you really have this entrepreneurial spirit in your veins from mom and dad, the pizza shop, and then the cafe. I mean, I didn't know about that. So again, that's why these podcasts are great. We get to really get to know each other on a personal level. I think that's awesome.
I was a barista at the cafe. Oh, yeah? I called myself a broista. I was 15 years old, 14 years old.
Serving up like 19.99 espressos.
Exactly. But really taught me the ins and outs of service and how to communicate with people. So I was really grateful for that. At the pizza shop, I was just flipping dough, for my dad at a young age. 8 years old, I started working in the summers I was making $4 an hour.
Hey, man.
He was taking full advantage of me. I didn't realize at the time.
Child labor laws
were completely
out the window when it's your child.
Lines were crossed. Lines were really crossed. I tell my therapist about it. She's like, oh my God.
No way. It's like, make me a pizza.
Exactly. So I learned the work ethic side, waking up early, making the dough, kind of the process aspect of running a business. And then I learned the service side from my mom, which I was super grateful for.
Well, I have to mention, my background's in hospitality as well.
What did you do at first?
At first, I studied hospitality management at Penn State. I wanted to own my own restaurant. Yeah, so that transitioned into a e-commerce platform business for about 5 years.
I could so see you running your own restaurant, by the way.
I wanted to run my own restaurant.
I wanted
to run my own restaurant, and I kind of did that in a weird way in the early to, I guess, the late 2000s with a few buddies, but it was an e-commerce store. But I always grew up, I worked in restaurants in South Jersey. I learned so many things, even like the one thing, like don't go anywhere empty-handed in a restaurant, right? Like if you're going to go in somewhere, carry something, other things. There's so many things that I think the hospitality industry teaches, those who could be successful in any industry. So I love that's your background.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think it's going to do you really well with, 4 years in residential real estate, and then we talked before we hopped on about you getting more into commercial.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Exactly.
and in the city, you know, that's so important, right?
It's crucial, man. And
Yeah.
they're every block. You know,
Every block, backbone of the community.
I totally agree. And
Yeah.
if you don't know what we're talking about, it's those corner properties in Philadelphia with an apartment above. So
Yeah.
like, it's funny. I didn't realize this. Maybe it just clicked in my head actually as we're talking about it. But my father, commercial mixed use property.
Mhm.
That's where he ran his pizza shop out of. And my mom's cafe was a commercial mixed use property. And I was telling Jay before we hopped on, first 2 listings in the industry were commercial mixed use listings. It was 2 hair salons, one on 5th Street, one on 9th Street. And I was able to broker those deals in a pretty good market when I first got in. And it was a really tough asset class to finance. So we can dive into that piece of it too. But it's really interesting because I didn't realize that maybe my parents kind of gave me that ability to go into these situations with full confidence, even as a new agent.
Well, I'll tell you what, on the insurance side too, they're complex cases. You know, we thrive in that at REMCO. It's important to make sure that the policy, if it's not a joint policy, if it's not owned by the same person, that it's clearly divided. You know, we have those pizza shops downstairs and the apartments upstairs, and what happens when the pizza oven, you know, gets too hot and there's a little fire, or vice versa, where upstairs someone lit a candle and they fell asleep, and then the pizza shop's in trouble.
Really curious on your end how that looks. Is it something you could explain in a nutshell here?
It's what in more detail, just to save everybody from, I guess, the jargon. The policies are different, right? They're different exposures, different limits, different carriers have better markets for these types of risk.
Got it.
And, you know, REMCO being a broker, we have the opportunity to customize and tailor that policy for the South Philly pizza shop mixed use versus the New Jersey, Newtown, Yardley, you know, Burby community spot where there's an appetite for a different market. So I guess the long and short of it is it really comes down to knowing your broker, knowing the agent, but then also making sure that agent knows how to navigate the viable markets that will write that risk.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it's a different policy.
No,
you know,
totally.
they're different things. So
makes sense. And honestly, the ability to tailor your policies to people
so key.
Versus the other way around. I can't tell you how often I come across, hey, can you refer me to an insurance agent? Sure. I send them to someone at Allstate or whatever, or they just go on their own.
Yeah.
And they come back to me saying like, they have all these policies, but like, I don't see where it
Right.
works.
Right.
So it's refreshing to hear like you guys are able to tailor that to the client versus
and maybe
vice
even
versa.
on a I'm not to say a lower level, but maybe for those who are in real estate who encounter something a little bit more regularly than mixed use, the flat roof, right?
Oh,
so I'm sure. So that's like a very mild example. You know, there are carriers 20 years ago that would write flat roofs in Philly all day long until the cows came home. But now they've become very restrictive.
Right.
So, you know, what do you do if you have a realtor who wants to, you know, sell a house in you know, Old City, and it's a, you know, an 1850s flat roof for some reason? I don't know. Or
does that scare the hell out of you guys? Like
no,
those...
it doesn't. It doesn't, because it actually allows us to flex, you know, what we do best, and that's navigate the markets, make sure the coverage is proper, and then explain it, right? Like explain it to the realtor or explain it to the person purchasing the policy or the prospect. So it's like, it's almost like a consultative white glove approach, not just like, here you go.
Yes. And people need that. I mean, there's rarely that out there, I feel like, nowadays, where it's like tailored to you.
Yeah.
And I try to make the buying experience the same way, or selling experience, whatever it is.
So I'm happy to hear that you're getting into more of the commercial. The mixed use is definitely something up our alley that we could always, you know, chat shop about and stuff like that. And I think what's amazing is the relationship that the business, you generally on the downstairs, there's usually a business operation on the downstairs, how much the word of mouth game in that mixed use business. You take care of the pizza shop on the corner, and then, you know, the owner of the pizza shop tells the florist.
Exactly.
And then the florist tells the karate studio. And then the karate studio tells the barber shop. And then it's honestly a beautiful model.
It is. It's case studies, right? It's like, all right, I did it for them, I can do it for you, or vice versa. They're saying he did it for me, he can do it for you.
Yeah,
and case studies are a huge way to build your business up, and sharing case studies of like, hey, help this guy down the street.
Right.
Help that person around the corner. So, but once again, understanding what they need, because it's not going to be the same as that person. So it's always about just getting that coffee with them, or getting that call with them, a Zoom call, something like this, where you're just sitting down, having an open conversation, once again, consulting them, not trying to sell them anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know a big part about, you know, the real estate and I guess graduating and excelling your career in real estate is building a good team around you.
For sure.
Is there any, you know, maybe team story or team oriented story you want to kind of share with the listeners?
Totally. For any listeners out there getting into real estate specifically, interview your brokers. when I first jumped in the business, I trusted some people that I worked with in the past. For example, I said I was in construction. So I asked that contractor, I said, who do you use for your real estate needs? He said, this is my person. I won't name names. I said, great. I went and worked for her. And she had me doing rentals. She had me doing pretty much, exact opposite of what I wanted.
Sure.
Point being, I was really lucky. I went to a golf event. It was over at the Philmont Country Club.
Hey, my club.
Shout
out. That's where I play. That's where I try to play.
Yeah.
That's where I try to play.
Ian McKee, potentially?
Yeah, of course. He has the word, Go Magnum Mortgage, but hopefully he changed it, whatever. But
he
that
actually
guy
just switched to cross country. Shout out.
Thank
Ian.
God.
Yes.
I was hard telling him that name was just something crazy. But
I agree.
I like Ian. I play golf with Ian. How you doing, Ian? But
How you doing, Ian?
Philmont's the club. Yeah.
We'll send this clip to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm at Philmont. This guy, Joe Cleary, shout out Joe Cleary. Ran into him. He came up to me and, hey, who are you? He's a very blunt guy. Do you know Joe?
I know Joe.
Yeah. Very blunt guy. South Philly Joe.
Yeah.
And Brooklyn Joe, technically. But comes up to me. What's up? I never seen you before. What are you doing here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's been in the business at this point 4 or 5 years. He's known everyone in the city for 10, 15. And I'm like the new guy just out of college, signed up with this, broker who I was telling you had me doing rentals. So I simply was like, I'm really happy at the time. But he was like, yeah, look, if anything ever changes, let me know.
Yeah,
so something changed, something inside of me. Well, actually what happened was I went to this broker. I said, look, I'm trying to get into sales. Can I do an open house? She said, they're dangerous. I don't do open houses. Anyway, the alignment wasn't there whatsoever.
Dangerous in the city?
Yes.
Is that why?
Anyone could walk into those things. You might get shot. I swear, this is the type of person I was working with. I know. I had trust in my people, which was a great thing, but I didn't vet any of what they said. So anyway, I asked for an open house opportunity. She denies me. So quickly I called up Joe. I was like, hey, Joe, I got to switch things up. Can we meet? He brought Nick Giganti into the fold, who's, the president of the team at the time.
Yep.
And so he got me really interested in learning what they did, which was development sales. So they sell land and then they sell the new construction once it's built.
Love it.
It's the best business model, I think, as an agent you can get into.
So smart.
So in the next couple of years, I started finding shells. I started finding land and I would sell that to people and I'd sell the ARV, the after repaired value of the home. And it was such a great business model because it's like every time you sell a shell, you have a sale coming after. So it was just like getting as many of these done as I could. So
two-piece approach.
Exactly. The business took off. But I think to your question, something that I could really share was just like really vetting who you're getting in business with. Because if I would have made that adjustment 4 months before, it might have saved me that much time, right, working with this other person. But I never look at anything as a waste of time.
I was just going to say, I hear you, but I was going to play devil's advocate just briefly because it's like you had to kind of shovel that shit to get to the daisies type deal, you know what I mean? Like,
totally did.
Even if you did have if she let you do the open house and you got mugged or something, like at least you have a war story, you know what I mean? And then but that's cool. And again, back to when we just started the podcast, get in the room, like was it Ian that invited you to Philmont for that golf outing? Like stay connected to those people.
Great point.
Because there was another podcast I was listening to and it was some guy who gave out like contracts for his to his people that he referred out because like his network was worth so much to him. And I was like, that's one extreme. That's like a really extreme. Like I do good, pay it forward model karma. I do the best to connect and align the stars for everybody else before I think of myself. And it's worked.
It's funny how that works, right?
Worked.
If you take care of other people, you end up just...
It's been 5 years. I'm almost hitting my 5-year birthday in insurance. And all I've been doing since is just that pay it forward model. And I can tell you, today, we are blessed with word of mouth leads. I walk into a room generally and people know of us.
Totally.
And I love that. And now we're being able to give back to our clients and host events centered around them where we can really intermingle with the referral partners. So by paying it forward always, I would say, it doesn't happen quickly. It took 5 years for me to look around and be like, okay, things are pretty good right now.
Yeah.
But, get in the room, take the invites, do the things you're uncomfortable. I mean, I never even played golf and I joined Philmont and I was like... It's the club to join. They're very, very nice. And they're very forgiving.
Yeah. Well, let me ask, what was your first networking event maybe where things kind of happened for you? Similar to that.
I would have to give a shout out to Brendan, who again introduced me to Ian.
Oh, get out.
Yeah, Brendan Carey from Core Title is probably my first networking buddy.
Okay.
Who turned into a friend, who is definitely a friend. Like we hang out outside of work. But he introduced me.
Those are the best.
He introduced me to Ian. So see how it's like, you get in the room with people with like minds and like goals and who are driven in the same direction.
Totally.
And you'll be surprised, you'll start connecting the dots. So
yeah, I think one big piece that I learned in my first year is environment.
Yeah.
So talk about an environment I was in with that female broker, know, not the environment to thrive in. And then you switch things. You just switch switch your environment even just a little bit. Taking one person out, putting a new person in, maybe whatever that may be, but change your environment. I think you change your outcomes in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I like that. And do you have somebody on the team who is kind of more a mentor or leadership? I know that they change as years go on in your profession or in life. Mentors change. Do you have somebody that you lean on?
Totally. Nick has been a huge mentor to me, and then Jordan Katz. Shout out Jordan Katz. Dime Properties. He is an incredible colleague. He works in our office as an agent. He's a developer. Great portfolio, great family. Most importantly, I love his family. 3 boys, and honestly, I told him this today in our team meeting. We're standing next to each other. Once again, I was able to source him a deal and help him build some more wealth. And we're just talking about that. And at the end, I was like, dude, I just want you to know whatever else you need, just let me know, because I look up to you and I see your life with the kids, with the portfolio, and I know that that's where I want to be. So point being is like, I might not call him up every day or every other day or even every month, but I just keep him kind of in my mind. All right, what would Jordan do?
Oh yeah,
what would 100%. Nick do?
And good for you for taking the time out to actually vocalize it to him. I try my best. I do have a mentor. He's attached to the firm. He's the individual that got me involved in insurance.
Okay.
But he too kind of always planted seeds during the food service time in my life.
Yeah.
When you want to do something different, let me know. He approached it similar to Joe. Yeah. If anything were to change, let me know. Ball was in my court, and lo and behold, I actually did entertain that, and it worked out. But I try to make sure I make time throughout the year. I try not to shower him with praise, but he knows it. I say, hey, thank you. And I do think too, like, in this position, things I need to be better at. He's kind of like that. Everything I'm not, like shut up and listen more, and stop talking with your hands so much.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Be calm, because that's good. And I'm glad to hear that, you let him know about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to vocalize it. Sharing, like, I think when you just speak it into the world too, somehow, things will come back to you. But I'm a very loving guy too. Yeah. I'll say I love you to like almost anybody.
I know it's an Italian thing. I know really sometimes it's like taking weird. It's like, he told me he loved me.
For me, I think the reason there's such a low barrier to entry, like, you don't have to do anything crazy for me to love you.
I understand.
If you're there for me and I know that you have my back, I love you.
I just think I think it's a European thing.
It definitely
because like I say it all the time too.
Yeah,
and they're like, does he?
I know. I hung up the phone the other day with like my TC, my transaction coordinator.
Oh yeah, because they did something good.
Did something amazing. I was like, you're the best. Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Like chatting with one of my team members, and they're like, I'm reporting you for a hostile work environment. No, it's all good.
I know. I was like, as soon as I hung up the phone, I'm like, should I text her saying sorry or something? But like, I know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You get emotional.
Exactly.
I do too.
I just am so in the moment that like,
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's like my default setting, which is such a good default setting to have. I don't have to work up to love. It's like, I love everybody. And then if you piss me off, that's where the red comes out.
That's where it switches.
Yeah, and that takes a lot too.
I definitely get that, especially my family members. They'll just cut you off.
Yeah, are you fully? What's your nationality? Where's your family from?
I guess father's side he would have been 3rd generation. I guess so. My father's side is from Abruzzi, and my mom's side is from like the Sicily area, but my father's side is 100% Italian. Like they didn't speak any English. They lived in South Philly.
Oh, get out.
Yeah, my mother and my father met in South Philly. They went to Newman Goretti before it was,
all boys.
The whole story. Yeah, so my ties trace back to South Philadelphia too, and that's why I really initially connected you, because I miss the city that I remember. Like I remember my grandfather lived off 9th and Shunk, Girard Estates area, and then my mother and my grandmother were off Hick Street. So I still know the area really well. And my father delivered pizzas for Fury's on a bicycle when he was a little kid, still there, know. So my roots go back to there. So I think I definitely felt like very comfortable to just start chatting with you because of that connection. And I'm not to say that I'm not interested in getting some form of, whether it's real estate or some rental or something like that, because I do miss going back to the city. Yeah. It's just, I feel like a lot of people have left it.
Definitely. And honestly, it comes in waves, the city, I feel like. Like before COVID, I really thought the city was taking off. The trend that we saw was all positive, and I wasn't in real estate at the time, but just remember hearing so many positive things. And then the pandemic hit, everyone was out. And now you're looking at it and
it was tough. That was a tough shot.
Yeah, you're looking at it now. I will say this past year, the sales have been down tremendously. This is the worst year of sales, I think, in residential and commercial in Philly, even maybe in the country. I think since 2005.
Like on a macro scale, I think we understand why, but why do you think in Philly in particular?
Yeah, so I think right now there's just too much red tape in Philadelphia for people to really feel comfortable investing in there. And then the safety issue, I think there's a lot of people that don't think it's a safe area, which fair. You know, I don't think there's any
right.
There's definitely evidence to support that for sure.
Absolutely.
There's also evidence to support that if you stay to your blocks and you know what I mean? Like you live in the right areas, and don't go out past a certain time. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I understand what
if
you're
you
saying.
want to live your life, and be out at midnight and this, that in the countryside, that's a great life. But if you really are comfortable, kind of just in the city life, I think it's one of the best experiences in the world because you get to meet so many people, which for some people is scary, but for me, I
get it.
You get to see so many new things. You get to just experience, I think, life at a little bit different of a pace, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, personally, I think that's some of the reasons people are steering out: the red tape for investors and the safety for retail buyers. So right now I'm seeing it actually come back. The red tape's being lowered a little bit. I think the city's opening things up. They've separated the license and inspections to licenses and inspections, speeding things up. The process went from, I think, 9 months for an approval to 6, which isn't great. Yeah. But
moving in the right
direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will say shout out to Sherelle Parker. I think she's doing a great job with the city, cleaning it up literally and physically.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, literally and metaphorically. Yeah. Cleaning up the city.
I hear you. I mean, I would say that my first thought was the safety issue. So I think if the safety issue will drive so much more success cleaning that up because it's that peace of mind.
Yeah.
And again, look, the city life will always attract the extroverted, the outgoing, the socialite. Yeah. There are individuals who love that extra space. I travel out every 2 weeks to visit my guys out at Mullica Hill, and I'm looking around. I'm like, I feel like if I was awake at 6 o'clock on a Friday night and I wanted to go out, I don't know what I would do, but that's not me.
You're stuck.
So I kind of want, the suburbs have been okay for me, but I'm itching to I still, head in for the best eats. I mean, that's just another topic of conversation.
Yeah.
We could do a whole podcast on that.
What are your what are your go-tos?
I mean, I will just stick with the Italian just to keep it straightforward. I mean, I like to visit the saloon.
Oh,
that's only because it's been in my family for a while. Like my uncle still references Ralph's, even though it's been around for a while. But now we have all these up and coming little Noni's.
Yeah,
we have Giorgio on Pine. We have all these amazing, and I know I'm missing so many. I'm just going off the cuff. Alpin Rose, and then it goes on and on and on. But I love the new opening of restaurants because it reminds me, not to mention, it's so freaking hard to be successful in the restaurant industry with those margins, the 10% margins in general. And I'm just, that's on average. But in the city, even with these big, conglomerate chains, the stars and all that kind of stuff, I still would love to support the local mom and pop business that wants to succeed in any city.
Totally. And honestly, just to really go in on that point, that's why I love the business on the commercial side of things now. So the residential is great because you get to connect with homeowners, first-time buyers, et cetera. But now that I'm connecting with small business owners, to your point, I love supporting them, man.
It's the best. It's the best. It's
why I have a vision. If they have a vision, and oftentimes they don't know the roadmap, they just have the vision. So just being able to sit with them and give them that roadmap. And I'm sure you do the same thing.
Well, it gets my juices flowing, right? Because there was a point where I was that business owner in the hospitality space, and we had an inferior policy. I brought it up on this podcast. I don't want to get into too much detail, but we had an inferior policy. We had to open up a claim, and we never got what we were expecting to get back because it was written, horribly.
Who wrote that?
It wasn't me. I didn't know about insurance till then. It was a friend of a friend of a friend who one of my business partner's uncle or something like that. I don't know. But it was an inferior policy. We didn't have refrigerator or reefer breakdown coverage. We were storing all of our frozen product, and we were out a lot of money, and it was hard for a small business to pull that out and move forward and take the loss. So I think I lead with that story with some of my business owners, especially in the restaurant industry, but connecting with a business owner and letting them know, hey, listen, you're an expert at your hair salon, your barbershop, your karate studio, your Italian restaurant. Let me be the expert in the insurance. And on the day that you actually have to use this, it's not even a piece of paper anymore, this PDF file that I email you.
Yeah.
Let's make sure it works, right? Because that's what we do in insurance. I mean, I mention it all the time, and I'm okay to mention it, that we thrive in fear. Insurance brokers, we love to sell fear. you sure you want to pay a little extra money every month just in case this blows up?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
You
a
sure?
fine line.
You
Yeah.
sure you don't want to? And it's like, hey, listen, here's the policy you need. Here's another version of the policy if you really, really want this extra protection.
Yeah.
And here's a version of the policy that I guess is more than what you need.
Yeah.
Right? There always is. You can upsell them more than what you need and people will buy it.
Yeah.
But it's not necessary.
Yeah.
So here's what you need. Here's something a little bit more. And then here's something a little too much. Because you can over-insure, right? And that's a big thing that a lot of companies, especially the larger firms, they push.
Yeah. And it's funny. I was just talking to a guy who said even during the pandemic, a lot of insurance companies would oversell everything and you couldn't meet in person. So you didn't know if a person was integrous or not.
Exactly.
And to your point, you just mentioned something super integrity based, where it's here are your options.
Here are your options. Yeah.
Here's the value each one provides.
Right.
Your choice.
And the beautiful thing, and I think that's when the client or the business owner starts to see our approach. The solo op, the small business getting started, here's what you need, right? It's always about here's what you need at least. And then as their business grows, taking the time every 6 months to a year to check in on them. Hey, how are things going?
Yes.
You got a new truck. You hired 3 new people. You're thinking about another location. Okay, well now here's what you need. We graduate the policy as the business starts to succeed, but we're not gonna put a new business in financial constraints, selling them something that they don't really need at this point in time. So I think it's important to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, just the constant advising that you're doing with your clients, it just allows them to feel like you have their back.
Sure, absolutely.
Even if it is just maybe nothing changes in that 6 months.
Then, hey, at least we had a conversation, or at least we talked. I mean, I think the other kind of the reasoning for over-insuring is because you can get them a policy that they might grow into in 3 years, and then you don't really have to talk to them for that long. I know that's kind of like the methodology behind it, whereas like I'd rather just touch base with you every so often and get you what you need as you need it.
Exactly, because every dollar to those small businesses,
it does.
every dollar.
It does. So
it's not even like, all right, this is $1,000 more this policy. It's like, hey, it's $20 more, and they're considering maybe going with another one.
Exactly.
Every dollar makes a difference.
Yeah. So holidays are coming up. We will touch on it a little bit. I don't know when this is actually going to hit the air. Hopefully, probably around New Year's Eve. So any plans with the family? I mean, I know you. I follow you on social. I try to stay in tune with my peeps. So.
Yeah, no, totally. This fall we took a Euro trip, as you saw, Paris, Amsterdam, and Munich for Oktoberfest.
That's
which
awesome.
It was very tough for me to kind of make that jump to like leave for 2 weeks because since I've got into it, I've never taken that much time off. I think the most time was like a day or two.
Okay.
So like anxiety was high, but it really forced me to. I had to hire a VA before. So like 6 months before I left for the trip, I started implementing a VA into my business, and I go for 2 weeks, and it was the best 2 weeks. I put 2 things under contract. I closed on a deal, and I realized that I've created a business now finally where I don't have to be here.
Isn't that a beautiful thing?
It's the most beautiful thing in the
world.
But
see, you're so wise. Like you hired a VA. Like, you know how many people just take that trip and then they wonder when they come back why the world fell apart?
Yeah.
And I say that even to the team, but when they want to take time off, like, you have to have, a plan for when you're out of the office, right? Like if you disappear and you don't put your away message up, you don't have someone backing you up, and then you come back and you're like, well, this is why I can't take off.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can. You just didn't plan for it, right?
Exactly.
What was the VA experience like? Because
it was difficult at first.
Yeah.
I think everyone needs to hear this because VAs seem like a really easy option at first. Yeah. My mind, get a VA, teach them the ops side of things, and just make sure they can push emails from one person to another, which is typically really what a real estate agent does. You're not really making I'm serious.
No, you're not making the transparency, but yeah, no, I understand.
You're like getting the information from a seller and you're giving it to your buyer client, or vice versa. You're representing the seller. Hey, forward this information to the buyer agent. Great. That's really what we're doing. We're communication experts, in my opinion. That's what we're meant for. So, I think about a month in, I'm realizing she's not getting much. I'm doing video recordings, trying to get every little thing. And you don't realize how much you do that's administrative until you get a VA either.
That's interesting. And I can see that.
I was going to say, do you have a VA personally yet?
Oh, I evaluated it. Okay. I really did. But I haven't personally, being fully transparent, I haven't been able to I haven't decided to take 2 weeks off yet.
Good.
But when
I'll tell you about the trip.
I want to hear about the trip, but I want to hear. I love this because, and this is so important because we have a lot of listeners who, VAs have come across, and I know that there are good ways to go about it. There are bad ways. There are also good VAs. They're not good VAs. But I think when you break down what you do in a day-to-day basis and actually try to make that SOP, sometimes it's like, holy crap.
It's a little mind blowing.
You know?
You start to think, how did I do this for so long? You know what I mean? Without an
Yeah.
SOP. It was just all muscle memory.
Right.
And hard work and hustler. Right?
Yeah,
A hustler mentality.
yeah.
So anyway, I go to the trip. Don't get me wrong. It was business was great. Just 2 weeks out of my element. Like I tell this to my girlfriend all the time, you know, I'm truly happy with my life. Like I don't feel the need to go anywhere or do anything because every day I'm going somewhere and I'm doing something.
That's cool.
I missed being at the office. I missed being on appointments. I miss meeting someone new. And don't get me wrong, when you're traveling abroad, everything is brand new. So it was super exciting. But there's an exhaustion factor to it. Anyone who's done 2 weeks abroad, you know exactly what I'm talking about. 10 days is all you need. You don't need the extra 4 days. You think you do.
What did the girlfriend think? Did she enjoy the 2 weeks?
She did. She hit a wall as well. That was a thing. So we're in Paris, kind of our last stop of the trip. And, you know, we're just like, what do we do? So I took us and we got massages for like 2 hours each, just to decompress. Yeah. And it was the best money I spent all trip, I think.
That's cool, man. Well, congrats on taking the trip because there's a lot of people that are, you know, apprehensive, including myself, to make that. But I think, you know, taking time off and being strategic about that time off is so key. Right?
Yeah, being strategic is the best part, right? The key piece. And just to finish about the VAJ, you know, make sure you're really vetting your VA as well. Once again, not vetting again my broker. Now it's a VA.
No, hey, live and you learn. Yeah,
exactly. But to your point, I've always jumped in the arena, which is what everyone always says is my best quality. I'll always take a hack at something and you know try my very best. And if I fail, it's never a waste of time. Understood. It's always I learn something. So.
Understood. My personal, I guess, workaround to the VA, because I was highly evaluating one, was past 2 years we had summer interns, and I think if you can find someone locally, boots on the ground, who is within the industry. This guy was the one in the past year. He was exceptional. Yeah. He was a risk management student at Temple Fox School of Business, which is like up there. He was so insurance. And he might listen to it. I don't know. I'm okay, but he was so smart at insurance, like tactile insurance. Like you could ask me about the mixed use, and he would give you but you would have been like, what?
Yeah, like a calculator almost, like spitting it out right away.
And I tease him because I'm like, I would love to bring you on the team, but you got to learn how to like talk to people and sell. And I think like in this day and age, they're so freaking technical, like the students, and then learning it. But he's way smarter at insurance in 2024 than I am. Mm-hmm. But so it's like so interesting. But he was a great help over the summer, and even our past intern he went to Michigan.
Okay.
It's really good to try to cultivate and hire from within, or promote from within, or find people in your community who can help do some of these things and teach them, you know, the email correspondence and all that, because when you break it down, it's really not rocket science, but you're doing it at a personalized high level. Like people like dealing with you. Yeah. Like they like dealing with emails from me. It's hard to replicate that with someone else, right?
Oh,
because I read those VA emails. I read also horror stories about the VAs, and I'm like, I'm reading this email, and I'm like, that's the coldest looking email I ever read in my life. Like, put some personality into it.
Yeah. Two things that have really helped me, because that was my biggest fear, is like, it's not me. You know, I want that. People work with me, right?
Yeah.
Well, one is when I first, you know, talk to people, I let them know right away, you're joining, like, I'm part of a team. I have a team. It's not just me. So it's always setting that expectation up front. So if an email does come down the line from someone who's not me, they're not surprised. And I think that's a big thing. Mm-hmm. But ChatGPT is the biggest thing. I always say, write an email in your own words and then put into ChatGPT and say, make this sound like Martino. And it does it for her.
Really?
Yep. And so she used to send emails right from my account. And then I started thinking, this does make me look like more of an authority if I have a full-time assistant. So now I've created an entire email for her. She says, hi, this is Martino's assistant. And her email is Karina Martino's assistant at Gmail, right?
That's pretty cool.
And honestly, a lot of my clients have like been like, yeah. Like, and now she's like she's part of the team.
I was just going to say.
They're like, yeah, I'm going to call Karina for you. And I'm like,
that's a good feeling. Yeah.
It's the best feeling.
On a high level, there's a few mentors or guys that I look up to in the marketing space out in KOP who, you know, do this at a very high level, where like they have a team of VAs, like 200.
Wow.
And they like fly them into PA, and they have like a holiday party and stuff. So like, I'm just saying, like, I don't know where this person's at, but like having some form of out of office, like, connection too, just to get to know them, it seems like it makes the relationship a lot stronger, because they're people. They're people.
I just said this on my podcast. So we have a podcast, Real Talk with the Hunters. I love the Real Talk here with REMCO.
Oh, it's the same name?
Same name, Real Talk with the Hunters. It's very similar.
I didn't know that, Joe.
It's not as cool as this though.
No, come on. We're gonna. Invite me on that.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I'm excited to have you on. Nick's my co-host, my mentor. That
Oh, cool.
I've been talking about
yeah.
here. So, but I was talking about this with someone. We talked about this today, even in the meeting. But happiness, or at least good energy, is like putting good gas in your tank. Where you're just gonna run at a higher level. You're gonna run for longer, and you're gonna be able to handle challenges and problems at a higher level. When you are not giving people that high energy or love, right? To my point earlier, they're not gonna operate at a higher level. So giving, I think, just 5 minutes to talk to my VA, even before we dive into my daily tasks, because every night we meet and we set up my next day, which has been, for any entrepreneur.
Yeah, I am interested. We're going to talk. I'm going to get my notepad out. I think I'm going to have to need to do this.
It's amazing. Yeah, and I'm happy to coach anyone on, like, how do I set up VA systems, because I got coached on doing that.
That's awesome.
Spent a good amount of money. It was worth every penny.
Hey,
but
you pay for what you get.
100%.
Yeah, I believe that.
But the point being is, like, before we jump into anything, it's, right now her father, right, is going in for surgery. I know, so I check in. How's your father doing?
There you go.
It just lets her know that what she says matters, which is the key in life. You want to make people feel that way.
Absolutely.
VA or not.
Hey, with the goal, I would feel like and I'm interested, I want to kind of go down this route, because it would be awesome if that VA could actually be somebody that could be a full-time, in the country, full employee. Can you imagine, like, if you were to be able to draft a relationship or establish a relationship with someone overseas, and they've been helping you for years, and then they end up actually coming over here and starting a life in the country?
That might be a cool movie idea.
That would be a really cool movie except the VA's a robot. She comes and then tries to kill you.
And plot twist. See ya.
Yeah.
No, I actually, I thought about making the switch. I actually wouldn't have switched. I would have kept her as my VA and then added a full-time assistant this year.
Okay.
So funny you brought this up, because I business planned this for the last 3 days. Shout out my mentors, Jim, Nick, Andrew, who were just sitting next to me, literally in the trenches of my numbers. Here are your expenses. Here's your income. Like, what can you pay them? How's the commission structure look? Right.
Right.
So I try to just incorporate someone full-time, because I want to duplicate myself, and get more into the commercial stuff while someone has my residential handled. But honestly, I think as a realtor, I think any realtor who's looking at that, after looking at it, a VA does really exactly what you need them to. I just need to optimize her more.
Understood.
You don't need someone full-time in person, I don't think, until you're at a level where you're selling $1 million and you're really trying to build like a global brand. Which is, honestly, that was my vision,
but it still is.
I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
It's just, so I think
I hear what you're
saying. In real estate, you don't need the full time, but it would be amazing to have someone maybe virtual come over.
Well, on I guess the very minimal level, it's actually allowing you to SOP yourself, right? And that's something that I continually work on with the agency, is trying to standardize everyone's actions without making it feel too robotic. But everything should have an answer, right? Like, if a client says this, or if this happens, there needs to be some form of playbook that people can refer to.
Yeah, those charts that it was like,
the organization.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
That's all it is, and it's simple, and I think success is boring,
No, very good.
If you want to be successful, you have to do the boring stuff.
You do. Yeah, not the stuff you want to do, the stuff that you should do. Right?
So do it.
Or
hire someone to do it.
Or hire someone, or hire a VA.
Yes.
Listen to Martino. I am definitely we'll talk after the show, because I definitely want to get some information on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, as we approach the holidays, keeping in mind that, the communities that you serve, and Philly being, one of the more impoverished, I would say.
Absolutely. There's
is there any foundations, any organizations, anything you try to, focus on, or anything that means a lot to you around this time of year?
Absolutely. It's always been feeding the homeless.
Feeding the homeless,
to your point, the poverty in Philadelphia is terrible, especially in downtown areas. So for me, just to answer your question, it's St. Patrick's. I'm a church every Sunday kind of guy.
Really?
It's my reset.
Awesome.
It's like that breath you take before you jump back into your week, that hour of just like quiet. And they have a great program where they feed the homeless in Rittenhouse Square, which is right near, if you guys know Philadelphia, Rittenhouse is one of the nicer parks in downtown. And the church is right there off of Rittenhouse Square Street, or Avenue, whatever that street is called. And you just go around, you drop off some canned goods, a warm meal, right? And man, I swear that's more fulfilling to me than selling all the real estate in the world, is just seeing the change and the help that you can have, and kind of maybe seeing the same people over, and they say hi to you, and you just build those relationships and build up the community, because that's so fulfilling. There's some great agents, Alan Dom being one of them, who I thought was really well-rounded. He actually just ran for mayor, and I voted for him. Shout out Alan Dom. Yeah. But real estate entrepreneurs who really want to not only sell in that area, but watch it be built up. So for me, that's something that I've gotten into recently.
I think it's so great, and it's so holistic, right? I mean, like it's full circle. You're selling homes. Yeah. You're at your position that you mentioned. You're buying land. You're building. You're new construction. You're I guess regentrifying. I'll use that word. The city.
Super fair.
But then you're also on the other side of things. Even the clients or the people in the community, the citizens that aren't fortunate enough to be, maybe right now your clients of yours, you're making their environment the best that it can be.
Yeah, I think, that's the biggest dichotomy that we face as agents is like we want to gentrify areas because we know that that's what's going to push innovation and push more money coming to the city, which is going to keep the city alive for longer.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to your point, right? What's the biggest struggle with Philadelphia right now in the real estate market? You mentioned and you said the red tape with safety, right? So at least you're doing something actively yourself about it. You're trying to promote, well-being on both sides of the coin. So. Absolutely.
It's such a hard feeling though when like there's a deal that we're doing right now in South Philly. It's $100,000 house. It's a shell. You see the condition. I met the owners. They've been living in this condition for a long time, and it's just a shame when you see the other side. I was very fortunate to be raised in South Jersey, go to a good like you guys heard my whole story, right? To like walk in a listing appointment some days and just be like, wow, wow. Yeah, some are funny stories, right? Like, I had fleas all over me one day. My client has got to take his shirt off in front of the house. And it's the first time I met him. And then there's some stories where you're genuinely like, my heart goes out to you. Where are you going to go after this? And I'm telling it to a developer who wants to flip it, but I am always prioritizing where are they going next, and trying to keep them in a good area or whatever it may be that's important to them.
It's good to stay. I mean, and I see it. Not so much, I guess you're on that one end and then you hand it over to the other scope. And that's where we do a lot of the fix and flips. We do a lot of the wholesalers and the hard money lending and all that kind of stuff. And it's so transactional. Like it's tough to watch some of this stuff. And some of the content, I mean, it grabs your eye. I mean, I've been trying my best to make insurance interesting for as long as
I love your content.
I get it, but and I appreciate it. But it's like insurance is freaking boring to market. It really is. So, but real estate is attractive. I mean, hell, like, back in the day, HGTV was like the closest thing we had to the Instagram right now.
Right.
Like
the brothers, the property brothers.
Exactly. So when you see that kind of stuff and you see, the flippers or the renovations or even like, guys like Justin in the contracting space, they're proud of their work. Here's what it looked like before. Here's what it looks like now. But like before, it's like, there was somebody in there. Somebody was living in all that. The hazmat suit you had to put on to get in there to start cleaning it out. Someone didn't have that suit.
Yeah.
So,
I think that is the most, that's the biggest blessing I think I have in my business. Some people might be like grossed out walking in there, but it gives me such perspective and it makes me so grateful for the life I do have, seeing how they, the living conditions that they're in.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we are wrapping up. We're going to end with time. I do want to mention that, what's your best form of communication? If someone wanted to get in touch with you, is it social media?
Yeah, I would say social media, MP3_Philly. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty active on socials. We post a lot of content with our podcast, and
it's good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. We're trying to get the best architects, the best developers, the best insurance brokers. Yeah. We haven't had an insurance guest yet, so
I'm next.
Got your spot.
I'm next. I'm happy to be on.
So we're just trying to have high-level people on the show that can, talk about their journeys and how they got to where they are.
Absolutely. Well, stay tuned for that next one on MP3 Philly.
_Philly.
Yes, Philly. Martino, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much, guys. You have one of the best insurance brokers here in the world. If you already work with them, if you don't, figure it out, please.
All right. I'm going to pay you after that for saying that. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good holiday. Take care.
Happy holidays.